And so at this point, he has these two guys in his life, Doug and Eric, and they're both Christians. And they're
Those are two new Christian friend-ass names.
Yeah, my Christian friend Doug. And so they're kind of like nudging him toward the Lord in emails. So one of them sends him an email that's like, just, a relationship with Jesus is personal. He's your confidant and friend. You can turn to him anytime, in caps lock. Like he's getting these evangelical messages.
He subscribed to their newsletter.
I wonder where he met them. Like, how did he meet Doug and Eric or whatever?
That's a great question. He doesn't. I really don't, because I think he has a house. Like he lives in a neighborhood, so maybe there's some sort of community interaction. But like he's also a famous rock star who's very much like secluded from life at the same time. So I don't really know how like Doug showed up.
These guys are like Methodist shock troops who've been training for like 10 years to do a halo jump into like the new metal encampment on one of these tours in like 2003. They're the ones who are special ops for converting people like this guy to Christianity.
It just like, because even just with what I do now, that with Street Fight being like my job and my thing and shit, is that like there are no Christians coming and trying to like co-opt. Like there's nobody being like, the Lord could also be with. They like specifically avoid me.
I would love to.
The Lord could also be with you if you wanted him to also be with you.
I would love to see at the end of a Street Fight radio show. I would love to observe the conversation of the guy coming up being like, "So have you thought about putting Jesus in Street Fight?"
I don't think like it's this really weird thing where like. I just don't know who those guys. Maybe they were just guys that like
friends from home. Maybe I don't know. There's got to be some vector in there.
Yeah, he's still like hovering around Bakersfield at this point.
They sound annoying as shit, though. They really sound like they were just emailing them all day and being like, all that bad shit you're doing, you should replace that with Jesus.
Yeah. And the email is just so funny. Like Head is logging on to like brian.head.welch@hotmail.com. And getting these messages from Doug.
Yeah, maybe they were just the only three of them who were online at that point.
Yeah, well, I'm starting to think that like he's received some spam email from a church and then responded to it.
Right? Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing is that he frames it as like it wasn't an act of humans, it was an act of God. Mm. Like all of these people kind of coming in and talking about religion. And like these, seeing these sort of what he seems like random messages that are all coming together is like God telling him to come to Jesus. Eric gives him a Bible with his name inscribed on it for like I guess nominally Christmas, and he's like, I was kind of drawn to it.
But that sucks to give somebody a Bible for Christmas.
Right. Just give him a Bible. It's not a gift. It's like giving somebody a tire iron for Christmas. It's a spiritual tool.
I feel like I missed out on a pair of socks when you handed me that Bible.
It's also so funny to me, even if you're in like a particularly dark space and are susceptible and are like talking to people about God, about somebody handing you like a literal Bible. Like Molly, you tried to start reading the Bible as like a literary project.
I did.
The other week. Could you imagine, or not the other week, a few months ago?
Yeah.
Could you imagine like getting into that as a reading tool, even if you were like very low and be in your mid 20s, early 30s, and being like, oh hell yeah, the Bible.
Well, I mean, I also think it's kind of insane to hand someone who has no concept of religion at all, like just this inscrutable text, not inscrutable, but dense and like really weird book. It's really weird.
Yeah.
I don't know how to read it. Like I have a college degree and I have no idea how to every time I try to open the Bible and look through it, I'm like, what is this? Why is this organized like this?
Yeah. I mean, I was raised Catholic and each mass, you got a little fragment of Bible. You got a chunk and it was selections. It was curated.
Greatest hits.
Yeah. It was not like you talked about the weird parts where God tells you which sides of the altar you need to throw the goat's blood onto, which is a thing. That's real early shit. But you don't get that in mass. You get the like touchy-feely, like, yeah.
Yeah. Anybody who who handed me a Bible was like, "You're gonna find some answers in here." I'm gonna be like, I can't get through more than 2 pages of this.
I don't understand. Like, if anytime somebody's told me to check it out, they end up having to after that tell me, "Well, like you can get a Bible for dummies," and I'm like,
It's like fucking Jordan Peterson videos where they're like, no, all the answers are here. You just have to watch all 40 hours of all of his shit.
Like I don't want the Bible for dummies. Like that where they like simplify the Bible so that it does make it easier, because I don't want to read that dumb book. Like it's
if your book is so dumb, you have to make an even dumber version of it to like get people in. I don't know. Anyway, the Bible, dumb. Don't read it.
Yeah. Well, he's
Watch
kind
the
of drawn
movies.
to it. Head's interested. And then so he recounts there's one morning where Doug basically comes over after he's been doing meth for 3 days straight and is like, "We're going to church." And Doug takes him to church, and he's like, he says he's got like a hoodie on over his head to try to hide the fact that he's been doing meth for so long. And he says, "All these people around me started raising their hands in the air. Some of them were crying. It was all too strange for me, and it just freaked me out. These people were weirder than I was, and I had been awake for 3 straight days. But something inside me didn't want to leave." So he was like drawn to this particular, and this is bad that I can't remember which particular brand of Christianity he was originally involved in, but it was like the yelling kind.
the hootin' and hollering church.
Yeah.
That's the only one I think. Well, the only church I've ever said I think I could get into is Snake Church, where they have the big poisonous snakes and they have them bite them.
Yes.
Like, I get that.
That would make me
like
really anxious. I would not like that at all.
There's one in
I think you're
Ohio,
right.
but there's one right by where I live, but you can't just go. You have to.
You gotta know a guy. You gotta have a Snake Church guy.
Yeah, you do absolutely, because we tried to get in a bunch for a long time, and it was just like they ain't gonna let us in. But like, at least he went to the yelling kind of church, because it's like, he could have ended up going to one of those like hip church things where the guy wears the like thing around his
the mega church, like Hillsong style. Yeah,
I could maybe get into a little light speaking in tongues church if you just really approach it as like a kind of expressive therapy, and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna go like shout nonsense in front of a group of people, and that in itself is like a therapeutic act, even if I don't really go the extra step to say God is speaking through my gibbering mouth.
I like the ones that are in strip malls. Like those are the churches that I'm like, what the fuck is going on in there? Like, how did they afford this?
It's a lot of weird little churches.
But it is just weird that he was it's always really weird to me when somebody can go and like not be receptive of it and then leave like, holy shit. Like I've never sat in a church in my life and been like, this is good. This kicks ass.
Yeah. I think that's totally right.
Yeah.
I've never experienced like, oh, this is a good time. This was fulfilling. I think I'll come back.
Yes.
Yeah. You just want to leave
it's gotta
the whole
happen
time.
It's got to happen for some people where they're just like, you're just like sitting there like, this rules. This owns. I love this. This fucking kicks my ass right now. It's great. But I mean, it obviously happens for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, it happened for Head. I mean, maybe he also just might have been like, I mean, he's like addicted to drugs and suicidal, but he's also like tired. I think he's just like pooped.
He just needs to sit down for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He just happened to sit in a church. It's like, this is fine.